Hello and welcome to Stretford Paddock. This is The Debate. I'm joined today by two very good friends, very good esteemed colleagues. We've got Jay from Full-Time Devils. How you doing, mate?
I'm touched that you said very good friend. I always thought it was one way. I think of us as very good friends. I didn't think you did. So no, I'm touched there, mate. I'm glad.
Of course I do. And Alex, of course, from Stretford Paddock. How you doing, Alex?
All right, mate. Yeah, not bad. You know, as good as we can be.
You're looking good. That's double's coming in nicely. I'm liking what's going on here.
It's doing well, yeah. It's doing well.
Anyway, today we are going to be, this is the first in a series we're going to be doing, looking at some of the tasks and challenges that United are going to have to deal with and contend with coming up very soon. And the first one is going to be David De Gea versus Dean Henderson. Obviously, this season is kind of spluttering and who knows what's going to go on. Maybe there's life in it, maybe there isn't. But what we do know is that next season we're going to have to deal with a pretty big decision. Dean Henderson, currently on loan at Sheffield United, has been, let's face it, outstanding for the Blades this season and last season. And David De Gea, who hasn't been in his best form for probably the best part of 18 months now, is trying to defend his place at Old Trafford. You know, we've got these two guys to argue whether he should stay, David De Gea, or whether we should bring in Dean Henderson. First of all, then, I'm going to go to Alex. You think we should keep David De Gea for at least one more season, don't you? You've got 30 seconds to make your opening argument.
Okay.
That's 30 British seconds.
30 seconds.
Yeah.
Right, in this time zone.
So you've got to make the argument for why David De Gea should be Manchester United's first choice goalkeeper next season. You ready?
Yeah.
Okay. 3, 2, 1, begin.
Okay, David De Gea. He has been the best player even for Manchester United under Ferguson. It is only right that he sticks around for as long as kind of he wants to. You know, he's deserved the right to make some of the mistakes he has been making this year. And to be honest, still pulling off world-class saves and being a world-class goalkeeper. I think one of the things is this team is building around him. And I think that the more you add players around into that back four that are going to be good at, you know, his one big criticism is what he does at crosses. And I think the more players we bring in that are going to help that, I think David De Gea will get back to his best completely.
I'm going to have to stop you there, Alex.
Wow.
Although I was contending with the slight issue that I'd set the timer for 30 minutes, not 30 seconds. So I had to quickly switch over to 30 seconds. So you may have got a little bit longer there even than you thought. It's a short time. It's a very short time.
It is.
Well, very good argument. Very well made.
Yeah.
Looking a little bit back at De Gea's contributions throughout his career there at United. Obviously, United's best player post-Fergie. But there are maybe question marks. And to highlight some of those question marks, Jay Motty from Full-Time Devils, you're going to make the argument that Dean Henderson ought to be Manchester United's first-choice goalkeeper next season, or there or thereabouts. Right, you ready with your 30 seconds? You ready? 3, 2, 1, off you go.
Listen, no one's denying that David De Gea has been a great servant for Manchester United, and I don't disagree with Alex's comment about him being the best player post-Fergie, but he isn't anymore. And the fact is, you know, you talk about we need to build a team around him or put players in front of him. We've done that, and he's still making mistakes. We brought in Harry Maguire. We brought in Aaron Wan-Bissaka. We've got a great defence, and we're still seeing errors from David De Gea. I think post-Tottenham away last season, he hasn't been great. He's made so many mistakes that have cost us. And in the meantime, Dean Henderson is having an absolute stormer, and he's arguably going to get Sheffield United into Europe, while David De Gea oversees us not getting into Europe. It's a no-brainer. David De Gea should be dropped. Dean Henderson comes in.
Got to stop you there. Very good argument. Look at this. Is good. But two powerful arguments there. I don't know what to think. I tell you what. Next, what we'll do after this. I've enjoyed both of your arguments. I'm going to bring a few stats into it, because if there's one thing I like and I know real good is stats. I'm very good at stats. So, how do you contend with this? Saves this season. Henderson 70, De Gea 76, about the same. Save success rate, Henderson 76.1, David De Gea 71. High claims. Now this is, like you said, Alex, one of De Gea's biggest criticisms is his claiming the ball. De Gea 5, Henderson 16. I'm going to stop there because I think getting into those high claims, and that should be the next thing we talk about, the weaknesses of De Gea. We've seen, you know, a few shot-stopping mishaps recently that you could perhaps kind of overlook, like you said, because of how good he's been. But one thing that has been consistently levelled at De Gea is his inability to command his box from set pieces. And United, leading up, well, throughout most of the season, have had the worst or equal worst set piece goals conceded of anyone in the league. And potentially part of that is down to that lack of high claims from De Gea. Alex, first off again, What do you see as a sort of defence to that part of his game?
Well, like I said, I think the team itself plays a big role in this. I think we've not got a team that, we've probably only got one or two players in the team that like heading the ball and they're attacking the ball at any time whatsoever. I think it's one thing that we need to add to that team. You've got, at the minute, you've probably got Harry Maguire, and then in midfield, you've got Maddison, McTominay that probably do it. But again, McTominay's not known for it. And then you look at, I'm usually comparison to Liverpool. I'm not quite sure what Alisson does, but I don't see him as a keeper that comes off his line. But you see that team, they have Van Dijk, they have Gomez, then they have up front, their strikers, two of their three attackers are comfortable in the air and are people that head the ball. It's something we probably need to add at Man United, people that are better in the air. And I think that's probably the reason why that is the case. Henderson is allowed to do that because he's got, there's players around him that can do that job, that can sort of protect him and things like that, whereas De Gea doesn't have that and kind of has to stay back on his line because at the minute, you've only got really Harry Maguire in the box doing that work for him.
So you're saying that, a lot of that is down to the defence in front of him rather than him. Jay, then, one problem that was not necessarily a problem, but something that remains an unknown about Henderson is the fact that, it's one kind of pressure getting a team from the Championship promoted and that are playing this kind of miraculous style of football and getting these miraculous results under, the current management. But do you think the pressure of coming and taking that to Manchester United, as a United fan, he talks all the time about how he wants to be a legend at United, Dean Henderson. Do you think that that step up is necessarily going to translate and that he'll be able to manage that easily?
Well, there's only one way you find out. We can have this debate from now until next summer. You're never going to know unless you give him that chance. Personally, I do think he can make that step up. I think he's handled pressure. He made one mistake against Liverpool this season that's been highlighted. David De Gea's made about 7 mistakes this season. And going to the back of last season, the mistake at the Nou Camp, the mistake against City, the mistake at the Emirates this season against Watford, against Everton. We've just seen mistake after mistake from David De Gea against Crystal Palace. And it pains me to say that. And he doesn't command confidence in his team around him. Alex was mentioning then about, David De Gea's not got anyone around him who can command the area. Harry Maguire's got, if you want stats, he's made the 7th most headers than anyone in the Premier League this season. He's an absolute beast at commanding that area, but he can't do it all on his own. He needs a keeper that can do it as well. And he hasn't got that. David De Gea is shaky. Now, Sergio Romero isn't perfect, but when Sergio Romero's playing, if I'm being honest, I feel more confident because he commands his area. He does. If someone's on the edge of that 6-yard box going for a header, Romero's winning it. He's taking him out. David De Gea, he dithers. He's in no man's land. He stays on his line. He comes out. We've seen it against Everton at home when he came out. It was. You could argue that maybe VAR should have given him a foul, but there's just not that confidence there. Can Dean Henderson come in, and command his area and make the step up that we want him to? I don't know, but one thing's for certain. Dean Henderson's only going to get better. David De Gea isn't going to get better. He's in decline. I'm sorry, but he is. He's having his worst 12 months he's ever had in his career. So he's not. I don't see him suddenly having a greater 12 months down the line. I'm not saying he's a bad player. He isn't. And if we're with David De Gea next season, I won't be disappointed. I'll be behind that. But I think Dean Henderson's a better option. He's a young keeper that's just going to keep getting better and better. He reminds me a little bit of when David De Gea was that age. He was a phenomenon. He was this 21, 22-year-old who was just one of those star keepers in world football. Dean Henderson's got that about him. And I think with David De Gea, I don't know, maybe it's because he started so early. Maybe it's just catching up with him a little bit because we've seen it with lesser goalkeepers like Joe Hart. They get the wrong side of 30 and all of a sudden they're not like Edwin van der Sar, who was amazing at 35. Something's not quite right. And I see that a little bit with David De Gea. I think one's in the ascension and one's in decline. And I think it's the one in the ascension that we should be putting in the sticks, for Manchester United next season.
Right, Alex, that's a pretty powerful argument again. Any rebuttal to that? The thoughts that De Gea may be in decline and we ain't getting anything better out of him than what we've got currently?
I think the other note is kind of, has Ole already made that decision with the contract that he's given David De Gea? To sign him up on that kind of fee, the $375,000 a week, till 2023.
Yes,
till then,
2023.
Maybe 2024, that's a long time that's a lot of money to get out of that contract. And I just don't, the other thing is, I don't see where De Gea will go now. I don't see where you can move him on to. And I don't think United want to have a player that's going to be second choice on $375,000 a week. For as much as he's not going to be that Sanchez level where he's not wanted and was kind of paying wages. I mean, what do United do in terms of that case? So for as much as the argument is for Dean Henderson to come in straight away, I think it needs to be maybe at least a season, 2 seasons down the line until that happens, because otherwise United are going to waste a lot of money, because I don't see Madrid coming in and going, I'll have him, we'll have him now. I don't see Paris coming in and saying, we'll have him now at 375, 400 grand a week. So I'm not saying we're stuck with David De Gea, because it's a decent player to be stuck with at the end of the day. But where does he go? What happens to David De Gea if Henderson does come in?
So that's a good point, actually. Looking at the whole picture rather than just who is the better player. Looking at the logistics of this as well, because this is a business as well as a sort of a passion and a football thing. This is, like you said, we've got a 375 grand a week asset that's 30 years old to contend with as well, rather than it just being the man and the person between the goalposts. This is a sort of a business asset as well. I'll come back to you actually, Alex, for an answer to this. Then, what would be your kind of play, as they would say in American football, going forward? How would you play this out? How would you deal with the fact that we've got Dean Henderson on loan? Seems very happy at Sheffield United, but he has been there for 2 years, and we do have, like I said, this 370 grand a week asset in David De Gea. How would you contend with those 2 players in and around the squad? How would you maybe change things over in the future? Or, what would you do to kind of address the situation that we're in currently?
I think your ideal situation is where Dean Henderson comes in and is known to be the number one. I think that has to happen. I think it would be to bring Dean Henderson back and kind of have him in and out of the team, playing here and there. That's not good for a goalkeeper. I don't think that's good for whether it be on, De Gea's side or whatever like that, switching the goalkeepers around. So ideally is you want an agreement with Dean Henderson that, look, you need to do another year, another 2 years at Sheffield United or elsewhere, or can he move on and maybe even go and do it in Europe or something for a season? I don't know whether that's an option for him. Where he could maybe go to a slightly bigger club, and then when he gets 2 years down the line, when you can see that we can move De Gea on, for someone will come in and pay a reasonable price for him, because they're not. I don't see someone coming and paying 80 million for him. I don't think that's going to happen. So when you can move him on for a smaller fee, then that can happen. And then Henderson comes in. He's had all the experience. He's had all the tests that you can ask for him. He comes in and becomes our number one in a couple of years' time.
That's a nice way of dealing with it. It sort of keeps everyone a little bit happy. Jay, then I'll give the same question to you. How do you contend with the fact, taking away, unfortunately, you have to do this sometimes, taking away the who is a better footballer aspect of this? How do you deal with the fact that David De Gea has got 3, maybe 4 years left on his contract? I think if they do the option to extend, on a 375 grand a week contract, and we've got Dean Henderson, who has got a year less on his contract, playing very well for Sheffield United. How do you sort of manage the kind of the business asset side of things if you were to get Henderson in?
Yeah, I mean, that is a fair point. I get where Alex is coming from, because we gave him this ridiculous contract. I don't think it was all it stinks of Ed Woodward, of just throwing huge amounts of money at someone because we panicked, because we thought he was going to leave and he'd been our player of the year 4 seasons out of 5 or whatever it was. So we did what we always do at Manchester United. We threw too much money at the situation, and now we're left in a bit of a predicament because of it. I think the way around that would maybe be if David De Gea was to move on to a club for almost a cut price, because yes, they might have to match those wages, but if they weren't paying massive money to get him, then maybe they'd be up for that. And I think we have to be sort of more brutal at Manchester United. Yes, I get where you're coming from about giving him another couple of seasons at Dean Henderson, maybe going to another club and then coming in. By which time, David De Gea's 29 now. I talked about having a decline at 31. That would sort of tie in with that, if you look at that. But I think the short and long of it, who would be the best option right now as goalkeeper for Manchester United? And I think it's Dean Henderson. And I think that should be your starting point, and you should try and make that happen. And if that means you let David De Gea go to Real Madrid or something on a cut price deal because they're going to pick up his wages, then so be it. Because I think if Dean Henderson comes in as number one now, I think Manchester United will probably have a better chance of getting into Europe, of challenging for those trophies with him as the keeper than we would have David De Gea. And, it pains me to say that almost, because I've been a massive fan of David De Gea over the years. But I think we need to stop sort of cutting corners almost and saying, oh, well, we'll settle for this, we'll settle for that. We're 37 points behind the Scousers. We can't afford to be having anything that is slightly not as good as what it could be. We need to be at our maximum in all levels. And I think we're getting there on other areas of the pitch. You look at the defence, the way we've strengthened, you look at bringing in the midfielders we brought in, the midfielder in Bruno. I think we're almost there. And if we bring in someone like Sancho, then you can look at our front three and think, yeah, that is a front three that can challenge So your goalkeeper's got to be at the top of his game. And I'm sorry, David De Gea hasn't been at the top of his game for a good, I think Joe alluded to 18 months. I'd probably say 12 months. I think since Spurs away at Wembley, he's been in, I don't know if it's decline or just poor form, whichever way you look at it. But I used to be able to count the mistakes that David De Gea made in his career on one hand. I could probably count the mistakes he's made in the last 2 months on one hand. And that's sad state of affairs, but it's true. And I think Dean Henderson would improve our team. So get him in. If David De Gea moves on and we have to take a bit of a hit financially on the transfer fee, say he goes for 40 million instead of 80 million, but they're picking up that wage, and so be it. We've got a keeper there. We're not paying for another keeper. Dean Henderson already has. So it's not like we've got to go out and spend 60 million quid on a keeper. Get Dean Henderson in. And, you know, I know people are going to be giving me pellets for this because they'll think I'm disrespecting De Gea. I'm not. I love the guy. The same way that I used to love, you know, Rio, it was time for him to move on. The same way I used to love Rooney, time for him to move on. Keno, there's players where different ages, it's time for them to move on. And I think now is the time for David De Gea to move on. And would I be saying this if we didn't have Dean Henderson? Probably not, but we have got him. So that's why I'm saying it.
And that is the thing.
Michael there.
Yeah, don't get me started.
We'll move on.
Seriously, those guys run deep.
So yeah, that is a good point that you mentioned there about the fact that we are essentially, you know, look what Chelsea paid on Kepa. Was it 70 million they paid for Kepa?
Yeah. It's not even guaranteed to start now.
He's not even guaranteed a start. But if you're thinking of, you know, let's say we're in a position where David De Gea was our goalkeeper, our second choice was Romero, who's a good goalie, but you know, he personally, I would have concerns about him coming in as the full-time goalkeeper, Romero. If that was the situation we were in, where we had this faltering goalkeeper in De Gea and a backup where you think is an excellent backup, but he's not necessarily the person to take the man forward for the next few years. But like you said, Joe, we are saving probably, with him being British as well, 70 or so million on the likes of Dean Henderson. If there's this outstanding young British goalkeeper playing for an overachieving side in Sheffield United, and United were linked with him, there's no way it would be any less than sort of 60 or 70 million. So that is a good point that you make there. Right, before we go, you're going to have your closing arguments. I've enjoyed both of you have had to say, but what I want to know in the comments from the people watching at home is, what do you think? Obviously, it's a debate that's been going on for the best part of a year now, since, like you said, Jay, De Gea's sort of slightly faltering form, and Dean Henderson being so good at Sheffield United, having the most clean sheets in the league last season. I think equal most clean sheets in the league this season, or something thereabouts. They've certainly got one of the best defensive records in the league, and they're a newly promoted side, which is just unheard of. So let me know in the comments whether you think we should get rid of De Gea, we should bring Henderson next season, we should loan Henderson out for one more year, get another year out of De Gea. Whatever you think, let me know in the comments. But this is going to be your closing arguments. You're going to get 60 seconds this time, because you've had time to think of your stuff now. So you've got a full 60 to tell me why you think, first of all, Alex, will come to you, that De Gea should be Manchester United's goalkeeper next season. 60 seconds, are you ready?
Yep.
Off you go.
I think Dean Henderson will definitely be Manchester United's goalkeeper and first choice goalkeeper, but I don't think it can happen straight away. I think he needs another couple of years. I think the worst thing we could do is you do let rid of a goalkeeper like David De Gea go, who can still win your games. He still show world-class saves all the way through this season. If you let him go now, and yes, you save a bit of money on this, but you can't. That means you can't get him back. So I think giving Dean Henderson as much time away from Manchester United, let him have the mistakes. Let him have the mistakes that De Gea made in his first couple of seasons. Let him do that elsewhere, and then he come in as the world-class keeper that we know he can be in the future. Keep David De Gea. He deserves the chance to stick it out, and you know, I think that will be the resolution to all this.
Very nice, very nice. 10 seconds to spare, concise. I like it. And Jay, finally for you then, 60 seconds on the clock. Tell me why it's time for Dean Henderson to show that he is Manchester United's number one. 3, 2, 1. Off you go.
Listen, I love David De Gea. He's been a great servant. He's won Player of the Year awards more than any player in recent memory. And he's given us so many memorable saves, so many memorable victories. And he's helped us win some trophies as well, including helping us win our last league title. But there comes a time in every player's career when it's time to move on. And we have to be more brutal at Manchester United. We can't keep letting sentiment dictate decisions, because David De Gea has been making mistakes far more regularly over the past 12 months. Last season at Spurs away, he was a magnificent, but since then we've seen mistakes against Arsenal, we've seen mistakes against City, we've seen mistakes against Barcelona, we've seen mistakes this season against Palace, against Everton, against Watford, and these are mistakes that no keeper should be making, let alone a keeper of the standard and the quality of David De Gea. And you can see he's draining the confidence out of some of the defenders as well. He doesn't command his area, he doesn't command his box at all, and his distribution is questionable. In the meantime, you've got Dean Henderson, who's having an absolute flyer at Sheffield United. He's a young, up-and-coming keeper who's only going to get better. He's a United player, so we bring him in. We don't have to pay anything to get him in. We bring him in and we get closer to the Scousers, get closer to challenging for the title, get closer to putting Manchester United where we should be, back on top.
Thank you very much. You took Alex's extra 10 seconds at the end there.
He gave him this, so
there was a 2-minute pool of seconds.
It's 2 minutes between us, you see. This is the thing. And I had to do the disclaimer as well. Don't forget for 10 seconds.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, two very good arguments there. Do you know what? I don't know whether I should decide a winner or whether we should just leave it to the comments, because I really do think it's one of those questions where there is no
I know what we
right
should do.
answer.
I know what we should do.
Go on.
We should wait a few months, then go to a behind closed doors scenario where we can quarantine ourselves for a month or so with some hotel staff, and then you can decide.
Okay, that sounds great. I love the sound of that. Right, let us know in the comments who you think won that debate, and whether you think it is just as cut and dry as get De Gea out, get Henderson in, or keep De Gea, get Henderson out. I think there's no one really arguing for letting Dean Henderson go. It's just a matter of time until he takes over. Is the time at Sheffield United doing Henderson the world of good? The ability to make mistakes, a team where mistakes aren't scrutinised and criticised quite as much, or do you think that De Gea has had his time at United and his form ain't never coming back how it used to be? Let us know in the comments below. Thank you very much for joining me, lads.
Cheers, mate.
Nice one, mate. Enjoyed that.
We'll see you in a bit.